Hey, what's up? Doing this response in the car because I have to go to work. But I just saw your video, Kevin, and I felt that it definitely deserved a response. And since I have it fresh in my head now, I figured it would be better to record this now while it's still fresh in my head, even though I'm in the car, rather than waiting until I get home when I'm all groggy and sleepy and either doing it then or worse, with waking up and then trying to recollect and get my thoughts straight. Though, who knows, maybe it would have been better to do it that way, but I'm talking about it now. Alright, your main objective, what's wrong with me? I'm messing up and I'm awake. Your main objection to one of my objections to Kelly Jones's position on women and men and how they perceive reality and how well they can, you basically were saying that there was a major flaw with my bringing up sensory, how sharp, sensory awareness is. Basically saying it was generally a red herring or a straw man, and he said it really didn't have much relevance to the argument because having sharp senses doesn't automatically mean that somebody is able to perceive reality better. And you came up with a really good example of bringing up ADD, showing how people with ADD have great sensory awareness, but they can't process it well. And what's important is the fact that they're able to process that information correctly in order to interpret what's being given to them. I will concede that point. I didn't think of that. And if Kelly Jones also, if you're listening to this, if you were also trying to bring that up, I will concede that point to you as well. However, just like Kbiomech has said, it doesn't really give you either a point towards your or my argument. And I do want to throw this in. While I will sort of say that, okay, bringing this up isn't really a major thing, I will state this. When I bring up sensory awareness as a factor in determining reality, I'm not just leaning on that alone. I would think that having good sensory organs, to say the least, if you're really good at sensing what's around you, if you have really sharp senses, I would assume that the organ that you have for processing the information that's bringing in, that your sensory organs are bringing in, would be up to the task of decoding it. Remember that ADD is a disorder, and the disorder itself is not based on sharp awareness, but rather on not being able to deal with the data. If you look at organisms with sharp senses, no matter what those senses are, whether it's a dog with its really deep sense of smell, or bats with their extremely incredible, to us anyway, sense of hearing, their brains and the rest of their body are well equipped to deal with it. Basically, you can think of it in terms of a computer. Their software matches with the hardware that it has been given. With ADD, the software is glitched, it's buggy. So even though you got decent, very good hardware, the software isn't exactly up to task. Maybe the software is optimizing the level of sensory awareness the organism has, but it doesn't have enough in it to be able to process that data correctly. And thus you have the disorder known as ADD, where the person is not able to focus on one thing for long. I will also state that I can't prove this. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. And I'm pretty sure there will be a biologist coming wrong saying further that you're definitely wrong. But I'm wondering if we can, because I know that they have all these different drugs to try to deal with ADD, and from what I've been hearing, they're like either mediocre at best or less than satisfactory, but who knows, maybe they got some that work perfectly. But I'm wondering if you could find a drug that could keep the level of sensory awareness, but at the same time, allow the brain to process it correctly, what type of observations would this human being be able to tell us? And what extra bits of reality that we are missing are going to be available to this individual? I think that would be rather interesting. You touched on a couple of other factors that I wish I've been meaning to talk about with my own videos on this subject, about how well men and women can perceive what's around them and deal with it. which of course deals with reason and logic, because ultimately that's what the subject was about. Remember that, well, Kelly Jones, if you're listening to this, unless I got your position wrong, you're basically stating that men, because of how they employ reason and logic and how they're able to deduce things, they are better equipped at interpreting reality. My objection is that, number one, I don't think there's much of a difference between the potential for men and women in terms of interpreting reality. I don't think there's too much of an advantage for men to be able to do this over women. And I also am arguing for the point that, well, the human mind is flawed anyway. It makes no sense to take one form of human mind and then got another form of human mind, which both have problems fully interpreting reality, but then go, well, this one's better. No, not really. They tend to function the same. They just focus on different things. And many of the things that you're using to try to support your argument tend to be things that have to be learned. Remember, things like logic and reason are things that, while we have the potential for it, the innate potential certainly to do it, and we demonstrate it on many, I'll say, primitive levels, for lack of a better term, when it comes to advanced usage of this, these are things that have to be taught. These are things that have to be learned and researched. And, we take logic classes for a reason. While it's definitely within a human's potential to come up with logic in and of themselves, logic is definitely something that has a mathematical basis to it. And these are things that definitely have to be developed and have been developed over hundreds, if not thousands of years. Remember that we're taking advantage of a system that has been worked upon and worked upon and worked upon by many other minds before us. We're now taking advantage of this, and I find it rather interesting how human beings will take a system like this and then instantly go, see our potential? Yeah, it's great potential, but number one, it's not something that is, all that innate in you. You just have the potential to be able to achieve it. And plus, the level that it is at today is only at that level because of the work of tons of people beforehand. I really think it's arrogant to suggest that the level of reasoning and logic that we have right now is something that a single human can achieve in one lifetime, especially when it's been built upon by several different lifetimes, hundreds, thousands of lifetimes, all working on this. And also keep in mind, as I stated before in response to one of your comments, this is of course to Kelly Jones, that many people employing reason and logic came to different conclusions. Who's right? Because remember, you claim that the only way to get at the truth is through deduction. Well, people have been using deduction all the time to come up with their many different truths. We got so many different philosophers who came to different conclusions, and that's why we have different philosophies. I am pretty sure it's safe to say that the philosophy that is being espoused by, say, Ayn Rand doesn't exactly follow the philosophies of, say, Chuang-Tzu and Taoism. And both of them seem pretty valid to anybody who happens to look at them. It seems to reflect reality pretty well if you're willing to accept those premises. But keep in mind that those particular philosophies are only one facet, let's say, of what reality is. The human mind tends to be, like, each human mind, from the way I look at it, and if you want to prove me wrong again, go ahead, but it just seems to me that each human mind peering into reality seems to be just one facet of the whole. It's like one particular cut lens into reality, and somebody else's mind happens to be a lens that's shaped a little bit differently. So when they peer into the totality of reality, they tend to get a bit of a different image. And they both seem to be correct, but if you then... It's like, remember the whole story about the 6 blind men and the elephant? Each person happens to feel a different piece of the elephant, and what they're explaining about that piece is correct, but to say the whole particular thing encompasses that is wrong. And if you're going to be saying, well, if you bump a whole bunch of men employing men's psychology together, we'll eventually get the totality of it. Now you're still going to not get the whole picture because we don't have the female perspective. And the female perspective, for all their differences, is still a perspective that reflects reality. You're going to have to accept that as well. And keep in mind that for all you're touting about reason and logic, these things have to be taught. The logic that we're employing and using and taking advantage of, especially the stuff that has been brought about by great thinkers in the past, has been worked on and retooled and rethought and fine-tooled. So it's a system that continually needs work and has gotten work. It's not the work of one mind, nor can it ever be achieved by one mind. And it is indifferent to whether a man is employing it or a female is employing it, and it's not gender-based. Anyway, I kind of went a little bit off the topic, but that's what I want to say about that. So, let me hurry up and get to work. Catch you guys later.